Here in France, outrage. Outrage over what seems like the all too avoidable murder of 11-year-old Lyhanna, the 41-year-old suspect in her May 29th disappearance in a southwestern town, the father of a schoolmate who had twice previously been flagged but never questioned about other suspected pedophile crimes. We'll ask what went wrong about a string of high-profile cases that have recently shaken the nation, from the trial of a doctor in Western France who abused patients over decades, and a new mayor of Paris, himself a past victim of child sexual abuse, who has suspended dozens of after-school staff who were the subject of complaints. The formal charges, most recently just this Wednesday, against French pop icon Patrick Bruel over alleged rape and abuse cases dating back to the 1990s. Under pressure, the government's unveiled a string of proposals, including life sentences for certain sex offenders. The justice minister blames magistrates for dropping the ball. The far right blames the same magistrates for prioritizing what they call political vendettas. That's how they view the corruption convictions of their leader, Marine Le Pen. The left blames the government for devoting all its energy to the pursuit of small-time drug peddlers. And all sides bemoan the lack of means. One statistic: the gendarmerie in France says that 4 minors every hour lodge sex offense complaints. How to tackle that daunting caseload? Today in the France 24 debate, has France failed to protect its children? With us, Sarah McGrath, CEO of the advocacy group Women for Women, which hosts a multilingual online resource center for victims of domestic abuse. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. And yes, we have the online resource centre. It's womenforwomenfrance.org for anyone in France who's experiencing family violence or domestic abuse.
Well, thanks for joining our conversation. And thanks as well to attorney and law professor Coraline Duménil. You defend victims of sexual violence and domestic abuse. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Attorney Seydi Ba has also defended victims of sexual abuse and more broadly written about the systemic failures of France's justice system. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
If you're on the go, by the way, you can listen to the show wherever podcasts are streamed. With the Lyhanna affair, trust in our institutions has been called into question. That's a statement from the French president. Delano de Souza has more.
A silent march led by Lyhanna's grandparents seen here on the left in southwestern France. The 11-year-old's death hitting a nerve across the country after it emerged a man suspected of killing her had a history of child sexual violence. Last August, Jerome Barella was accused of raping another young girl multiple times, but he wasn't arrested, nor questioned.
Every time I called, I got the same answer. The case is ongoing. He wasn't questioned. He wasn't summoned. I was questioned twice. And the last time I rang them, they told me that if I kept harassing them, they would press charges. Is that an answer? No. For me, it's not an answer.
The fact Lyhanna's death was avoidable has increased pressure on the French government. While the Justice Minister has acknowledged the failure of the state, he and President Emmanuel Macron say the shortcomings weren't due to a lack of resources. The Prime Minister, however, says he has faith in France's justice system.
I want to restate my confidence in investigators, police officers, gendarmes, magistrates, all those professions within the justice system who have chosen this path as a vocation to protect our fellow citizens.
With pressure mounting from the street, the French government has called for a review of the 70,000 backlogged legal complaints for violence against children by mid-July. An order the lawyer for Lyhanna's parents calls a fantasy.
I would ask for a little respect. Examining 70,000 complaints by July 14th is just smoke and mirrors. And I hope no one is fooled. It's impossible unless one does a poor job of it.
The French Prime Minister is calling for strengthening an existing child protection bill, which would include stricter measures for dropping cases. This as the country's justice minister continues to resist calls to go.
Lots to unpack in that report. Let's begin with the case of Lyhanna. Coraline Duménil, what do you make of the lapses in this case? When you first heard of this case, what was your first reaction?
I was horrified. I was so sad. The kind of delays that we see in our cases daily as attorneys standing by victims is basically what led the possibility for this man to be still out there next to this child. It's unbearable. But the problem is, this is what attorneys like me, what my colleague, this is what we see daily. And when we criticize the system, when we get back to the prosecutors, to the police, we get sometimes the answer that the mother of Rosa is receiving.
Yeah,
Get off our back.
They threaten her with legal action.
Yes.
This is the mother of the victim from
Another.
last August.
Yes. It's horrifying, but that's the reality. And when we speak about it regularly, casually, professionally, the answer used to be, oh, come on. You're making a big thing out of it. It's just because you are too much into it. You may be burnt out. I am not burnt out. But I'm telling you what is going on, and you don't want to see it. The problem is not my eyes, the problem is in your eyes. It's very hard to live in a world where so many children are victims of sexual assault, sexual violence. We know it. We reported the crimes. And still, this child is going to go back home with daddy. And we know that daddy is sexually assaulting her every night. And we have done everything we could as lawyers, as non-profits.
Sediba, let me ask you about your experience, because the last time Sarah McGrath was here, we talked about how the fact that since the Me Too movement here in France, there has been an effort to train police to have a better ear. Do you get the sense that people are listening more to the stories of the victims here?
Well, there have been a lot of announces, but on the field, we don't see the results. For example, I introduced a complaint about a victim in 22, and I still don't have any news.
2022.
2022, and don't have any news today. And my client, she cross her assault, her rapist, her aggressor, every day at the bakery. And as soon as I call the police officers, they say to me that they have emergencies, since this one is not an emergency.
Is the problem in that specific case,
Yeah.
is the problem with the police, or is the problem with the fact that do they need a magistrate to move the case forward?
It's both, because it is the prosecutor that is administrating the case, and he is leading the police officers. And basically, we don't have enough specialized units in these matters, because, there's actually also a difference between Paris and the countryside, because it is in the countryside and you don't have any prosecutor or any specialized unit. So as soon as you file a complaint, it takes years and years and years, and the perpetrator can do it again, and you are also a victim. So, there has been a lot of announces, but it's never a long-term political will. It's always a short-term political will, and you had a lot of announces after the Me Too movement, but we don't see any results right now.
Corinne, an important point made by Sediba. It depends where you live. In the case of Lyhanna, it's a town of, some 6,000 people in the southwestern part of France, in an area where there are local magistrates' courts, but they don't have much staff. Is that one of the reasons?
Well, in this story, the complaint was filed in one location, and then it was sent in paper version, not digitally, to the other location, and it took them 4 or 5 months to lead the investigation. Not enough prosecutors, not enough software. Let's be basic, project management. They don't have the tools, and not enough police officers. So basically what we have, the good news is, recently we had the Independent Commission on the investigation on incest and sexual violence against children. Since 2023, we have been given the guidelines, what to do. Find us, investigate, care, prevent. Find us in schools with doctor's appointments, talking to us, investigate. Talk to the perpetrator, look at his digital device, search his home, ask his neighbors, ask his wife, ask his kids, and care for us. Provide real psychological support. It's not there yet, but we know what to do.
All right, 2023, Sarah McGrath, this blue ribbon panel that comes up with those 4 steps. There have been other cases. What is it this time? Why was this the trigger for demonstrations across the country? Those demonstrations are unprecedented.
Yes, I mean, this has got a lot of media attention, and the case has specificities that are very, very disturbing. But as my colleagues have just expressed, this is the norm. This case is not the exception. Across France, in Paris, outside of Paris, the norm is that the police receive a police complaint, they put it somewhere online on a desk, they don't do anything with it. They say an investigation is ongoing, but that means it's sitting on someone's desk. They then send it off to the prosecutor, who classes it as sans suite in French, which means they drop the case, they're not going to move forward. And that is the standard. And so when we hear statements from the Prime Minister saying he has full faith in the French justice system, that is an insult to every victim in this country, children and women, who, for the majority of people who have made a complaint, have no investigation and no sweet, as we say in French.
So if this is the norm, why is the outrage coming now in June of 2026? Why is there now this we're not going to take it anymore moment?
Look, we don't know what drives when the media picks up on these cases, because this is the reality of daily victims in France. As my colleagues mentioned, they have got many cases that are facing similar stories. I think what was particularly difficult about this situation is that parents did everything right. They took the child to the police and made a police complaint. They supported their child. French parents are doing their best, and the authorities are just ignoring them. And so the fact that there were so many reports and now nothing's happened, it certainly struck a chord, I think, with parents in France.
All right, you mentioned that clip we heard of the Prime Minister. His words not exactly in sync with those of the Interior and of the Justice Minister in particular. Now, both the Interior and the Justice Minister have called for a full audit of government procedure in handling sexual crimes. The Justice Minister, Gérald Darmanin, telling magistrates on Monday, he summoned all the magistrates to the Chancellery at the Place Vendôme here in Paris, said there'd be no summer vacation for them until they review all 70,000 cases in their in-tray. Darmanin put the blame for the death of Lyhanna not on an unmanageable backlog, but on individuals.
No one understands, Madam Representative, in this very specific case, why it took 9 months to take a serial offender targeting minors into custody. The comprehensive law is undoubtedly necessary for tens of thousands of cases. But let's not lead the French public to believe that in this extremely specific instance, it was a new law or additional resources that would have prevented this tragedy.
So, Sediba, would a new law or additional resources have prevented this tragedy?
We don't need a new law. We need funds to pay the people, and we need people to enforce the law. You ask sooner why right now people are outraging. And I think it's because Lyhanna is a symbol. We have a name, and everyone can relate to Lyhanna and about Lyhanna's parents. We could have avoided it if we have funds, if we had enough prosecutors. We are lacking of 5,000 prosecutors to reach European what is the word again? Average. We need 5,000 prosecutors. So right now he's saying that he will lead investigations about 70,000 cases. in 1 month, it's impossible because in every case you need to call, you need to investigate. As my colleague said, we need to search about the prosecutors, and you need to hear people. It's impossible because it's just populism from Gérald Darmanin.
Populism, Coraline Duménil, or is he correct in saying that there is individuals who dropped the ball, who did not listen to that complaint? Is that not what you said earlier?
You know, I
Should
wish
they be called to account, those individual magistrates?
it's too easy. It would be so easy. Let's put it on them personally and not think about what we have been doing for many years and what we are still doing. Let's not think about how we are training, recruiting our judges. We ask them to be neutral, to apply the law. This is not true. They are human beings. They have biases. They are unconscious. And until now, this training has led us to many dismissals. So maybe this neutrality nonsense has to stop. And we need to be aware that they are human beings. They need help. Sometimes they do have vicarious trauma. They are traumatized by the cases they see. They need help. They need support. We need to care for them, not to prevent them to go on holiday. You should do the contrary. Let them relax.
There are lots of cases of burnouts inside the justice system. Now, Gérald Darmanin, the clip you heard of him there, he is a well-known figure in France, right-wing law and order interior minister, now justice minister, some say with presidential ambitions. In 2024, he was cleared of all charges, by the way, in a case where a woman claimed that he pressured her into sex in exchange for getting her criminal record cleared. The leader of the opposition Green Party, Marine Tondelier, nonetheless faults not so much Darmanin, but his boss, the president, the same Emmanuel Macron, who made equality between women and men a grand cause for his first 5-year term in office. She blames him for keeping Darmanin in government to this day.
Macron's explanation was we had a man-to-man talk, meaning we had a discussion between men. So that's fine, I trust him. I haven't had a woman-to-man talk with him, so I don't know if it will ever happen, but I don't think he belongs here. He's not legitimate.
Is the justice minister legitimate, or should he resign?
Politicians are going to do what politicians do best, and the people who are in power are going to be defensive. We didn't do anything wrong. There are plenty of resources, which is of course false. They're going to be in that defensive position. Opposition are going to put forward their case, ask for resignations. Politicians are going to do what they're going to do, but no one is an adult in the room on this. Those of us working in this field, the organisations proposing serious reforms and serious measures, we are horrified to see the lack of priority given to reforms in this space. But I think if we want to look at what the Justice Minister's priorities are and what the Justice Minister's priorities have been, we don't need to look further than what's happening in French prisons. I think the fact that our prisons are filled with young men, often from disadvantaged backgrounds, who have been found guilty of theft or petty theft or selling cannabis, petty crimes like this, whereas who's not in our prisons, it's rapists, convicted rapists, serial rapists. There are cases where we've had men who have been convicted of multiple rapes and they got a suspended sentence, meaning they didn't set one foot in prison. We have grandfathers that have raped their granddaughters and they've only spent 3 months in prison. So I think we can see the priorities by looking at the French prison system.
Looking at the French prison system, but it's also, I'll put it to you, Sediba, France has this special fast-track procedure for people who are found to have been caught in the act, if you will.
Yeah.
And that fast-track procedure has been used, critics say, to only target those involved in petty drug trafficking.
Actually, it's used against all small crimes. For example, even sexual assaults in the public transportation and everything. It's not, to me, a good jurisdiction because every case is treated under 1 hour or 30 minutes, which is not acceptable in a more democratic country.
You're judged and perhaps convicted in the day.
Exactly. You're judged, you're in custody, and then you're judged, and then you're in prison. All in less than 2 days, and you don't have enough time to defend yourself and everything. But it's a way to treat this kind of affairs. But after that, when you're in prison, what is happening to you? Do you have a psychologist? Do you have enough room? You have enough people to lead you to become a better citizen? I think not. Today in French prisons, it's overpopulated, and I think one people should take responsibility for this, and I think it's Gérald Darmanin. I think he should resign because the utility of Justice Ministry is to take responsibility, and the only way to take responsibility is to resign, and he does not. And it's in the following of what we see under Emmanuel Macron. He supports Gérard Depardieu, who was seen caught in act, just having outrageous words against a minor, sexual words. He supported Nicolas Hulot, who was also accused of sexual assault.
Former environment minister.
That's it. So I think we have announced, but we should have way more results, and fast-track jurisdiction can be an answer, but not a complete one.
All right, so two different questions here. One is your thoughts on fast-track procedures, which, by the way, among the measures that the government's announced this week, one of them is more fast-track procedures for sex offences. And also the role of the French president in all of this. Is he sending mixed messages? What do you make of Emmanuel Macron?
Oh my God. I think his message is pretty clear, and I will agree with my colleague on that. And regarding fast track, when you are representing the victim of sexual assault or a victim of sexual harassment, and you end up in fast track, it's heaven. Because for her, she filed a complaint, she sees the perpetrator, is judged, and right away is sent to jail. So as a victim's attorney, it's a good place to be in. As a defense attorney, I think it's probably a different position.
If I can add something, even as a victim attorney, sometimes it's too fast and you don't have enough time to find the victim. So we are judging people and they are fined and convicted, but you don't even look for the victim so she can have repair. And so I think we should take time when it's needed. Yes. But sometimes it can be wrapped up, and it should be.
All right. I want your reactions to another case that happened today. It was in the eastern city of Strasbourg. This was not fast-tracked. The conviction of a 39-year-old osteopath, 39 years old, in more than 50 cases of rape and sexual assault. His lawyer objects to the 17-year sentence.
It's absolutely brutal, and I think, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, that it isn't fair. That he's been convicted, fine, why not? That he's told, sir, you'll have to spend a bit of time in prison because what you did can be punishable and you need to understand a certain number of things, fair enough. But 17 years, that just doesn't make any sense.
All right, it's a difficult position to be in if you're the defense attorney to have to defend what's undefendable, but your reaction to that clip, is 17 years too much?
You know, I don't think it's too much. It's not up to us lawyers to weigh those convictions. But what I could say is I had several cases where rapists were convicted firmly, they appealed, then they dismissed the appeal themselves, and then they write us a letter to the victim's attorney or to the victim saying, I have been convicted, but I do not recognize having committed the crime of rape. I'm like, what kind of a situation is this? If once you have been convicted, you still can't understand what you have done. What do we need to do?
And the French government, by the way, talking about fast-track measures, also before the French Parliament, the Prime Minister talking about longer sentences. Right now, the maximum is 20 years.
We are seeking to act within the bounds of the law, not through political maneuvering. 20 years imprisonment for serial rapists. You'll be asked to debate and increase the sentence from 20 years to life imprisonment for sexual crimes committed against minors.
Sarah McGrath, your reaction to what the Prime Minister said there on Tuesday, increase for serial rapists who are found guilty of preying on minors to life in prison.
Well, I'm all for harsher penalties for serial rapists of children. Of course I am. The case that you cited about a 7-year sentence, that's actually quite rare. In the
17.
17. That's actually quite a rare result in the French justice system. Usually they're much more lax. So I am for harsher penalties because these are people who are putting our society at risk. These are the people who we can't just leave our children with the neighbour or even with their teacher or with their after-school care provider. It's an absolutely terrifying situation. But that's for convicted people. We're talking about sentencing once we get to conviction. We've got a huge problem even getting it there in France. As I mentioned before, the reports by children of rape to safe adults to the police are not investigated, which is why we're in this situation with Lyhanna. They are not taken forward by the prosecutor. And so it's all very well to say, oh, well, when we have a conviction, we're going to have harsher penalties. But no one's getting to conviction stage. So the investment needs to be in getting a justice system that we can take seriously, because at the moment, people in France do not take the French justice seriously, and they shouldn't, because we're seeing the results. And so it's all very well to talk about these harsher penalties, but it's not addressing the real issue. And also, it's not addressing the issue of safeguarding before a trial.
Safeguarding, what does that mean?
So we've got two different issues. We've got once there is a case that can go to trial and the accused can stand trial, he can defend himself, and the victim can present evidence as well. But there's everything that happens beforehand. France does this terribly. As soon as there's a report, and certainly multiple reports of rape on children by the same perpetrator, there should immediately be alarm bells. There should immediately be safeguarding measures put in place, such as detention, such as ankle bracelets, putting things in place to protect victims before things like what happened to Lyhanna happen. And that's what we don't do well. And every time we mention it, we get the constant, presumption of innocence. And we're not questioning the right to presumption of innocence in a trial, but if we're misusing that principle and failing to safeguard before the trial, we are guilty of leaving these men in our societies, with our children, and putting them at further risk. So we've got a big question around safeguarding, and we're not seeing that addressed by our government.
Okay, so let me ask you. I was going to ask about it later, but I'll ask about it now. As a result, this French pop icon, Patrick Bruel, he's a household name in this country. He is a singer, an actor. He's due to be this Wednesday placed under formal investigation. This after 48 hours of custody, where he was questioned over more than a dozen cases dating back all the way to the 1990s. Should he have an ankle bracelet? He's a 67-year-old man. Should he have an ankle bracelet, or should he be behind bars while he awaits trial?
I think that a judge should be in a position to evaluate if a serial perpetrator, carries forward a risk to public, and yes, they should be able to take such measures. Quite often in our advocacy work, it's about 10 years we've been advocating Women for Women France at the minister level in France and with various deputies. And I quite often put forward this proposition, which comes from Australia, which is this idea of interim restraining orders that are issued immediately on the word of the victim, which is treated like a piece of evidence, as it should be, not treated as, oh, a big potential lie, because we know false reports are very low, they're only 4%. Every time that we mention this in the French context, with our colleagues, other non-for-profits, with ministers, with police, with all of the institutions, it's seen as so radical. I've almost seen a reaction like Australia's run by a bunch of radical feminists, which is certainly not the case, just because with this Australian-style interim restraining order method, we are believing the victim, as we should, we do know that false reports are only 4% of reports of gender-based violence, and we're issuing immediate protection. Afterwards, the accused can defend himself, can bring forward evidence saying that's a false report, I didn't do it, here's my evidence. But in the immediate, the women and children are safe. And that's what we're not doing in France, and there's no discussion of doing it. And every time we try to bring it up, we get cries of presumption of innocence. But where is the presumption of innocence for women and children? They're not lying about abuse and rape. They're just simply not.
So there's a paradox here, Coraline Duménil. France has, in Europe, one of the harshest laws on the books when it comes to sentencing. They have the longest prison terms, in fact. So on the one hand, longest prison terms, and on the other hand, what's just been described by Sarah, we've talked about difficulty in believing female victims. Maybe you'll want to opine on believing children in cases of child molestation. But why is there this paradox that on the one hand, long sentences, on the other, difficult to get to that point?
Exactly. We do have those sentences. We can convict these people to very harsh sentences. It's possible. Legally, we can. We very hardly see it. The case you mentioned earlier of the osteopath, the 17 years, both of us will agree, it's rare. I think it's also because...
There were more than 50 victims, so...
Yeah, yes. Of course, but it's rare. It's as if we did not understand what is psychological violence if you have been raped, if you have been incested. It's as if a bomb was inside you and was ticking all the time. And until and unless the person has been cared for and healed, this bomb is inside. It's about to burst out inside. And we don't see it. People who have been raped are living next to us, working with us. And very hardly do we know it. Sometimes they'll tell us. Sometimes we'll see a situation and we will catch them and we'll see it. But we don't talk about it that much. And we don't talk about the consequences. And those consequences are often invisible.
And again, why is there this paradox in France? Why France? What is it? Is it specific to France, or is this something universal?
I wish it was specific to France.
No, but again, long sentences and too many people get away with it, particularly when it comes to sexual violence.
Well, I think it's because people don't understand the scale of sanctions. You know, you have two tops if you commit rape, 15 years or 20 years. And 15 years is for a simple rape, and as soon as you have one aggravation, it's 20 years. And that means that you can have one person raping his daughter, which is an aggravation, he's facing 20 years, and one person raping 300 children, like Dr. Le Squarnec, who raped 300 children. And for example, also Dominique Pellicot, who allowed people to rape his woman, his wife, during years. He's facing 20 years. And also, what is not an aggravation is premeditation. Premeditation is an aggravation for murder, but not for rape. So you can plan to rape someone, and it's not an aggravation. So I think it's long sentences, but I think it would be more understood by the people if the scale is way more detailed. And the paradox, well, people get away with it because, first of all, the prison are
A bit like with pre-trial, what Sarah was saying, that there needs to be more of a scale.
We need a scale. We need a scale before trial, and before trial, it's way too long. It's way too long. We wait years before, even at the end of the investigations, we wait years to have the trial. And after the trial, it's difficult for the judges to put someone in prison since they have been free for 5 years, for example. And, you know, I think we can take actions to protect women, to protect children that are filing complaint, if we have rooms for the alleged rapist in prisons. But prisons are full of people with petty crimes like selling a bit of drugs and everything, because that's the priority of our ministry, of Justice Ministry and our government, not protecting children and women.
Yeah, there's been this case of priorities inflation has been one accusation leveled at the government this week. The Parliament had been working since last fall on a framework bill to combat sexual violence. Coincidence of the calendar had the measure coming up before Parliament on Tuesday, smack in the middle of the outrage over the murder of 11-year-old Lyhanna. Here are the measures: reform the justice system and police, better protection for children, more means to fight violence in the workplace, larger role for health professionals. Sarah McGrath, have there been advances over the past years when it comes to helping people on those 4 points?
So this project, this law project, and we've seen various versions of it, it's never complete. It's all the versions that our legal experts at Women for Women France have analysed are extremely discriminatory and exclude migrant women and refugee women. So all of the measures that are proposed are completely discriminatory in our book. A lot of them don't address the serious issues. They're kind of little, more of what we've seen over the past, let's say 8 years. We've seen band-aid solutions. We've seen announcements. We've seen small measures, a unique window. We see all these things being announced, but the substantive stuff, so for instance, making sure that there are enough magistrates and prosecutors, not 4 times less than the European average per capita, for example, making sure that police are trained, making sure that all magistrates and all police are trained, have mandated training to combat unconscious bias, because that's a huge feature of the French justice system, where we don't have, we're not allowed to have racial data here in France. It's against the constitution. We know that men of colour, racialised men, are heavily policed, heavily targeted, and you know I've been with lawyers in the room before, and they've said, "Oh, I hope the abuser wasn't a middle-class white man because he's going to get away with it." So that's a really big subject as well. And these laws don't address those fundamental, serious issues. They feel shallow. They feel
How about
not enough.
how about on the issue of prevention? There's we've talked about it when it comes to sexual violence against women, but against children as well. There's even I read one article about this hotline that was put in place for those who feel that they have these sort of predatory impulses, and they say that the hotline is undermanned to help.
Well, that's a perfect example of ideas poorly executed. But I think there's a distinction to be made. The difference between sexual abusers who abuse children, who sexually abuse children, who rape children, and pedophilia. They are 2 separate things. Not all people men who do that to children do have pedophilia. So it's one solution, but it's not all of them. And I think we've got a wider societal issue. There was a really interesting result of an independent commission into incest in France by the Civis, and they had thousands and thousands of testimonies from victims of incest, children victims of incest, who are now grown or who are still children. And this is alarming. 92% of children who disclose sexual violence to an adult that they trusted, a teacher, a parent, a helpline, there's a helpline, the 119 in France, that children can call, didn't receive an adequate response. So 92% of children did not receive the response that they're supposed to receive, which is, I believe you and I'm going to protect you and we're going to put things in place. 92%. So there's the laws, but there's also a very big challenge within French society of believing children.
Do you think that with the Lyhanna case, teachers, magistrates, police will believe children more?
You know, I hope the teachers are going to write down what this kid has said, where and when, to whom, and send this report to the prosecutor and have the prosecutor do the investigation and protect this child.
It must be
That's
daunting,
what we
though,
need.
for the teacher who's not at all equipped to deal with this kind
Exactly. Well, the teacher doesn't have to say a crime has been committed. The teacher has to say the child said this to me, behaved in this way. We have many children who masturbate in class, a lot. Well, unsurprisingly, when we ask them what's going on, I'm thinking of one case, well, daddy is doing this in front of me on Saturday and tells me that's the way to relax. Prosecutor, family court, juvenile court if needed. You know, we can do something, but we need the report to come up. And the teachers are on the front line. They can help.
Is this always been the case, or is this worse than before?
You know, in 1986, there was a hotline which was created by Collectif Féministe contre le Viol, Feminist Collective Against Rape. In 1986, the phone started ringing. Many women wanted to talk. The women who were listening to them were very surprised because the people who were talking about their cases were women who were 60, 70, 80 years old talking about incest. It has been going on for a long time. The hotline exists. It's been on for many years. We have the records. Now we need the legal system to take action and to believe them.
Do you feel it may be a turning point, Sediba?
I think France was once traumatized by one cases in particular, the Outrage cases 20 years ago.
This town in northern France where there was
Exactly.
Lots of cases of child molestation.
Exactly, and we justice found out the children were not saying the exact truth because some people raped them, but most of the people accused did not. So actually, I think magistrates, judges are way more skeptical about the voices of the children right now, and I think we should find the right tone, the right balance to listen to children, because what we can all agree about is every children need to find a ear to be able to talk, even more than a ear, like child psychologists, because with children we have to find the crime after what they say.
So take the time to listen. That's the first step.
And if I may, and listen to them properly. Very often in incest cases, the child is going to say to the police, "Why daddy did this to me?" Next question of the police, who told you to tell me? Mommy. Conclusion of the police, mommy is making the child lie. I wish this was the case.
And to finish, what you're saying is really interesting, because in big cities like in Paris, police officers are trained to interrogate the children. But in the countryside, it's a police officer that is on traffic or that is investigating about other issues like drug issues, that is asking children. He doesn't have the patience. He doesn't have the good questions
so it's,
and everything.
It's parents, it's police, and it's the whole of society that needs to learn how to listen. Sediba, I want to thank you. I want to thank Sarah McGrath, Coraline Duménil. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.